Today is the day that the Americans waking up and rubbing the sleep out of their eyes are realizing that you are going into 4 years of doom and darkness as the great Lord Sauron has taken over, and now the Eye of Sauron will be beaming down on us all. But in the meantime, Trump has decided to pardon a bunch of people. Now, this is something I'm a bit disappointed about. There's no Assange, Manning, and Snowden on it.
Yep.
It's really disappointing.
I don't know. Do we know any reasons why?
Well,
he hasn't
apparently
done these,
Bill
or just
Barr.
rumors?
Apparently, Barr blocked Snowden's. Don't know anything about Assange. Don't know anything about Manning. But he did pardon Steve Bannon and Lil Wayne, which, I mean, I guess they're the only ones that I found notable on the list. But he pardoned or commuted the sentences of about 140 people. And I looked through the commutations of the criminals, and a bunch of them appeared to be people who actually worked really hard to improve themselves in prison, had lots of recommendations from the officials who were organising it. And so they actually look like people who actually look like they deserve a pardon, which I only had a quick glance through it, so there might be some on there that are terrible choices, but I didn't see anyone who leapt out as being an obvious terrible choice. It's not the same as the Democrats complaining that a bunch of people on death row were executed. And if you actually look at these people, it's like, oh, murdered 7 people, tortured 2 children,
Domestic terrorist.
Domestic terrorist, murdered a mother and cut the baby out of her stomach, murdered a pregnant woman, cut the baby out of her stomach. And they're like, oh, say their names. Don't forget that Trump executed these people. It's like, good.
I swear one of them actually was a white supremacist terrorist.
Doubtless.
And some lady, BLM, was tweeting out, say their names, and his name was on the list. And it's like,
So,
okay.
Again, this is why we did this ethics podcast, because you've got to understand why these people are bloody insane. But notably, Trump didn't pardon himself or Giuliani, which we advised against the other day, so it's a good thing you were listening, Mr. President. But he didn't pardon himself, and that's important because I don't think he did anything wrong. And I don't think Rudy Giuliani did anything wrong either, at least not from the evidence that we have. So good, I guess. But really, I mean, Trump should have just stuck it to them all and been like, look, I don't care what the ramifications are. I'm pardoning these 3 people on a matter of principle. And I don't doubt there are many people who are disappointed by that. As I said, myself being one of them. The next thing is that Trump apparently, we're told by the Wall Street Journal, is considering the Patriot Party, founding a new party called the Patriot Party, which I'm not really in favour of. A new report Wednesday says he's discussing forming a new political outfit called the Patriot Party. He's discussed it, but no further info at all, so I don't really have anything.
What's their source? Just someone
Just
said
the
this?
Wall Street Journal has said, insiders have said this. I mean, it's possible. It's totally possible. And it sounds likely, in fact, that, the Wall Street Journal has spoken to some White House staffer, passed them some money, and, okay, well, Trump said he wanted to start a Patriot Party because blah, 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 blah. But we don't have any proper information, but this is a rumor going around, and like I said, it's not beyond the realms of possibility in any way, in my opinion. Frankly, though, I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, Trump has like a 77, 80% approval rating still in the Republican Party. Basically, it is now the party of Trump. The base is Trump. So really what I think they should do is destroy the rhinos at the polls. Let's just primary them. Every single one of them that thought, oh, I'm going to side with the Democrats and the Democrat narrative on what happened at the Capitol, which is obvious lies, and we have the video evidence to prove it, they should say, right, those people have got to go. The MAGA folk should be acting with one will at the moment. Anyone who even gave any credence to accepting the Democrat narrative on this needs to go. All of them need to go. And to be
just in the next primary, put a MAGA candidate against them, have Trump endorse them, get rid of them.
Literally MAGA candidates with MAGA hats on, and it's like it's that or the corporate shill who's willing to work with the swamp. You choose. And the politicians who get installed should simply not cooperate when the Democrats are trying to do some nefarious stuff. Do their best to stop the damage that Biden will do. Make sure that they understand that the Republican Party is wide awake in the same way that the Democrat Party is, in the same way that the Squad is. Wide awake is in they have a genuine will to understand and defend what is theirs. Because what the Democrats do at no point is they ever give any ground. They never concede anything. They never toss out one of their own. And the Republicans, it's the only way you're going to win. Otherwise, you're going to get eaten alive by these people, which is why you've lost everything now. It's because of the weakness of the Republicans accepting the premises of the Democrats in this contested political issue. That's why Trump's fallen, I think. But any thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm a little bit... I was mentioning earlier, I saw the response to the fact that Julian Assange wasn't pardoned.
Yeah.
And what I find kind of interesting there is the fact that everyone was kind of expecting Trump to do it. It would be the right thing to do. You know, he's the kind of guy who could do it. he's not part of the swamp, and there's obvious disappointment. But no one, and I mean literally no one, is saying, okay, now Biden can do it, can they?
Yep.
Because everyone accepts, no, Biden is just corrupt part of the swamp. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. But Biden is the neoliberal establishment that hates Julian Assange and is the reason why he's currently in prison. So,
But it's one of those questions I just have, like, how could this be the most popular man in American history in politics?
just
When literally, like, everyone knows this guy is corrupt, if evidenced by, numerous scandals, but also an issue like this.
no, the American people love Biden, man.
Man,
They love him.
we love
You
the swamp.
You can see because at his speech where he's the speech we'll talk about in a minute, it sounded like he had about 12 people clapping in the background. I'm not even joking. Trump has arenas full of thunderous applause. Biden has like a few golf claps, and it's just like, okay, this is just embarrassing. But anyway, let's. One thing that Trump did was revoke one of his own executive orders, number 13770, that Jake Tapper very sensibly decided to post a gif of, I don't know, is that from Peter Pan, a crocodile? But he says, on his way out the door, Trump revokes his own executive order 13770, banning Trump administration officials from lobbying for 5 years. Jake, you're not opposed to that? You're not in favor of lobbyists being banned, administration officials even, being banned from lobbying. Jake Tapper has never expressed, as far as I'm aware, any kind of sympathy against the swamp. He's never tried to support any actions draining the swamp.
You can't engage in the same tactics we do. And this was, I don't know if you have this said, but there was I think it was an NSA appointment. Mm-hmm. Trump had appointed someone just on his way out, and it was a seat that's hard to get rid of him. And Nancy Pelosi was whining about this, saying, how could you do this? This is deep, you're acting like you're putting your guys in the deep state. It's like, oh, so we all agree the deep state's a thing. Yeah, and it's a political, wide awake, part of the government.
And it's currently full of Democrats. Is that what you're saying, Nancy? You're not complaining about any of the rest of them. You can't do it.
Only we can use it.
Exactly.
So it's like, fuck off.
This is another one of Jake Tapper's "It's okay when we do it." Jake Tapper, just for anyone who's wondering, CNN anchor and total lunatic who thinks that the riot on the 6th of January was an insurrection, and he's been pushing this irresponsibly hard, in my opinion. But anyway, moving on. So Biden decided to come out and give a speech. We're not going to play you any of it because it's 8 minutes long and it's really boring. But in his defense, he did look genuinely emotional. He did, gives credit to his son and things like this. And as a father, I can empathize with the idea of losing a son. That sounds awful. So I'm not saying that, nothing bad has ever happened to Biden or anything, and I'm not saying that you can't have an emotional moment. In fact, honestly, it was actually very sympathetic, this speech. But the thing is, I know it's all a fraud. Like, I know that when he says, oh, well, the character that Delaware imparted to my family, it's like, dude, we've seen the character of your family. We've seen the things that you do.
Stop insulting Delaware, please.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, if I were from Delaware, I'd be like, well, hang on a second.
I'm not a cokehead.
Yeah, we're not taking 2 stacks from China. We're not, exactly. We're not corrupt. We're not taking all this money. We're not having sex with 14-year-olds. What the hell are you talking about? Like, if I were Delaware.
Sniff kids.
Yeah, exactly. We don't sniff children. We don't take money from China. What the hell? Like, we don't. I'm not going to go on, but you know what I mean. Like there are lots of things about Joe Biden that are very wrong, just morally wrong, and we know this, and it's all pretended like there is absolutely nothing there. Like we've got all of the pictures, we've seen all of the emails, and yet he's never going to be held to account. No one will ever hold him to account. But anyway, so Politico put out an article saying that Biden staffers essentially fear what Trump has done to the administration of the government. And I mean, I can see why they're bothered, but like, Trump-led agencies are like pumping out last-minute rules, such as seeking to ban researchers from using fetal tissue from abortions to develop new drugs and treatments, as well as rules to make it harder for Biden to reverse conservative changes to the Medicaid program and exempt religious groups from bans on discrimination against LGBT people, stuff like this. But the thing is, this is all stuff that I think Biden's going to be able to undo fairly swiftly, so I don't really see the point. I mean, it is just going to be causing chaos.
But everyone does this. Why are you... Sorry, like Obama's administration did this, where you just pump through a bunch of stuff that changes the nature of the government.
But you can the new government can undo it, and it looks bad. I think that's not to their credit. I think it's to their detriment. So
yeah, I don't think it's good either, but it is just part of American politics. I'm not surprised.
Sure. But I actually think it would be wise for the Trump administration to be congenial about these things and just accept. Okay, fine. You guys won. in a free and fair election, and so we'll play our part, but we'll be back. It might be the Republicans, it might be the Patriot Party, who knows, but it's not over, and we'll be back. The American patriots will rise again. But anyway, they say that the Biden administration will have to track down the Trump administration's political appointees who have burrowed into career federal positions across the government, many of whom have partisan and advocacy backgrounds that have lawmakers and watchdog groups worried that they will attempt to thwart Biden's policy agenda from the inside. Good.
No, they're trying to infiltrate our deep state. Yeah. Leave us alone.
How dare you? How dare you? It's ours.
To have this.
Yes.
This shouldn't exist. That's the whole point here.
Yeah. So, weak disclosure laws have made it so that Biden will be taking office without knowing exactly how many of these conversations have happened in the final months of the Trump administration, or where in the bureaucracy the burrowed workers are. That Biden's team is worried they'll have to spend scarce time and resources finding them, reassigning the individuals so they don't have access to sensitive information. That's right. Anyone who worked with Trump is now suspect. Anyone who worked with Trump has to be dug out. They're burrowed into the deep state, and they can't have access to sensitive information. So, right, okay, you are literally treating your fellow Americans as if they're domestic terrorists and they're enemies.
No, I sort of have some sympathy for this.
Really?
Because you remember this happened with James Comey. Mm-hmm. Trump left him in place. He was put in by Obama. Whatever, okay, he's going to be in the FBI. But then he just turned out to be a complete partisan who was working against him.
Yep.
And he ended up having to get rid of him. And then he was campaigning for Joe Biden. So it's like, okay, so he was in a position in which he could have influence and exercise partisan influence with the Russia investigation. So
what you're saying is Trump didn't go hard enough?
No. Like that's the thing here. I hear them complaining, oh, no, we're going to have to do this. Yeah, well, Trump didn't, and that was to his, detriment.
Sure, so, but it's also to his credit that he tried to act like a president who was not simply at war with the other side, right? Because, again, the whole... I'm saying the Democrats just act like they're at war with the other side. And we'll show you a video in a minute that completely proves our point. But the point is, legitimate and responsible governance is not about persecuting your own citizens, obviously, and it is about the consent of the governed, right? And you need the consent of the losers. And so if Trump had persecuted the previous administration, he would have forfeited that principle from the start. And this is what Biden is doing now. And so what I'm saying is we can see which side on which justice and righteousness lays. Biden is just a return to the swamp, a return to the kind of, business as usual and deeply, viciously partisan agenda that the Democrats have been running, whereas Trump didn't do that.
Maybe, but I'm just at the point where there's no justice in politics.
There's not.
These two are just going all-out war, and why would you sit there and not use the tools available that they will then use against you?
I agree that Trump maybe in hindsight shouldn't have been the better man, but I'm telling you, man, in 3 or 4 months, Trump's presidency is going to have this golden aura around it, where he wasn't some lunatic who was interested in persecuting the Democrats out of existence. He didn't start any foreign wars. He didn't have domestic terror plans and to root out all this sort. Trump, and he just acted in America's interest. Trump is going to look absolutely golden after just a few months of Biden, but and not just not just because of the things he did, because the way that the MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, they weren't insane. They didn't try and hurt Democrats. They weren't trying to deplatform them or drive them out of society. Unlike Democrat supporters, this is a new video by a film I presume this chap called Don Winslow is going to produce. He's a New York Times best-selling author. 600,000 followers on Twitter. He's a name. He's a verified checkmark. And he put out this video called #Trump's New Army, where he essentially thinks that Trump's base is essentially just domestic terrorists, and it's up to the citizens of the United States to root them out. Let's watch.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
They heard their leader. They even responded to him on Twitter promising to stand by. And on January 6, 2021, Trump greenlit them. They suited up. They flew in. They took hotel rooms. They loaded their weapons, prepared their bombs. And they attacked with the intention of killing Nancy Pelosi and hanging Vice President Mike Pence.
They were vocally saying, "Where's the speaker? We know she has staff. They're here someplace. We're going to find them."
In the years ahead, Trump will lead his army of domestic terrorists. He will encourage and incite violence. He will play the role of arsonist and fireman. He will start a civil war and then say things were more peaceful when he was president. We have to fight back. In this new war, the battlefield has changes. Computers can be more valuable than guns. And this is what we need now more than ever, an army of citizen detectives. I'm proposing we form a citizen army. Our weapons will be computers and cell phones. We, who are monitoring extremists on the internet and reporting their findings to authorities. Remember, before the Navy SEALs killed Osama bin Laden, he had to be found. He was found by a CIA analyst working on a computer thousands of miles away. It's up to you.
Terrifying.
So, I mean, the message there is unmistakable. All of Trump supporters, anyone who's MAGA,
They're
is
a
some
terrorist
kind of domestic
base.
terrorist.
Yeah, that's going to start a civil war.
And you, as any average citizen, has to try and root them out.
Yeah.
We have to root out MAGA.
So this means you essentially spending your free time stalking and snitching in your fellow citizens to the government. I mean, it's genuinely something out of 1984.
It's just for the political beliefs as well. Like this guy down the road supported Donald Trump. He's very much Make America Great Again. He's got the flag, the hat.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Come pick it up.
terrifying, right? But this what this means is what this is going to lead to is the overt politicization of society, which is of course everything that the radical left have wanted and everything that the Democrats have been driving towards, and they're actively encouraging this. I mean, the Federalist put out this article that if we can scroll down a bit, John, Democrats pledging to fight Trump rule ensuring banks won't refuse service to conservatives. So the bakers have to bake the gay cake, but the banks are allowed to sit there and say, no, you voted for Donald Trump. We're not going to give you an account. We're not going to give you a loan. We're not going to work with you.
A choice to be a conservative. You don't have a choice to be gay. That'll be the argument.
Well, that's very bigoted because actually now intersectionality has made it. So not only do you have a choice to be gay, there is no particular distinction between being gay and straight. So actually, you can't say that that's the case. And there is also an argument to say, well, who actually gets to choose what they believe? Yeah. You believe what you believe based on the things you've seen and the values you hold.
But you could also just fake it for the party.
You could also just fake it for the party. So yes, and that essentially is what's going to have to happen. But yeah, it's 23 House Democrats have been opposing the non-discrimination that would be involved here. And
yeah, I mean, just for a second, look at this. Is this bad? This rule Trump's administration passed saying, doesn't matter what your political ideology is, you should be able to have access to a bank.
Yeah,
that's the evil guy here. That's the dictator. That's the fascist.
That's the fascist who's seeking to exclude people.
Idiocy.
It's mad. It's absolutely mad. And
the Democrats are sitting around going, no, that's not good. We need to be able to discriminate on the basis of ideology.
Yeah.
Sorry, who's the bad guys here?
Yeah, it's just cut and dried in my opinion. The Democrats have gone full-on autocrats and seem to actually genuinely hate the Trump supporters and want them expunged from society. And it just seems to be from their words, you know. It's like, sorry, we don't want you doing any kind of business. Obviously, like Parler being roundly deplatformed just for being a conservative platform. And it's not even really a conservative platform. It's just where the conservatives went. And so you can see where this is going.